The seagulls follow trawler. It's because they think sardines will be thrown into the sea. Thank you very much.
Talking nonsense. So I thought, no, enough's enough. Why should I put up with that? Talking nonsense. So I thought, no, enough's enough. Why should I put up with that? Don't back down, double down. Don't back down, double down.
So we are now here. Thank you for joining me and Mark this Sunday. I know it's a fashion of the bus for being late, but it's great to be on and be joining you guys on a Sunday. Thank you for joining me, Mark. It's great to have you on again, mate.
That's no problem, mate. How are you?
I'm doing well. It's good to be on, mate. I thought we were ready to go for a bus stop there, mate. But yeah, I'm glad to be on. I mean, there's so much to talk about with Celtic, and I'm so glad that people are tuning in to watch it as well.
Aye, that's right, mate. I've got a lot of good talking points today, so it should be a good show.
Yep. And obviously, it's been a great week for Celtic because they got the big signing of Vickers last week, and then you've got the new Argentinian left back, and you've also got Jota on Friday. Because I think me and you predicted that this time next week that Jota would be at Celtic Park with a brand new home top, and I think that happened, Mark. So what are we making of Jota signing permanently for Celtic?
Oh, that's fantastic business for the club, especially the money we paid for him, mate. You know what I mean? It's not like we've paid over the odds. I think it's Benfica's bad doing that they put a clause in the contract, £6.5 million. I mean, that's the sort of deal that we normally see the other side of, and they get ripped off. So it's great business for the club. I think it's been business that's been done by the board or the CEO or the actual structure last season, because it was set up as a loan to buy option. So I dare say that the price is already included in that, or else it wouldn't be good for the club, because if a player could play fantastic like we've seen before, and the price tag goes up to above your station. So I think we've got a good player there, and I think before we all start bringing out the button for Michael Nicholson and the board, we need to start to take a wee step back and see who actually structured the deal.
Yeah, I mean, I just wanted to ask you that because I know I've been a critic of the board the last few weeks, but fair play to them for getting this done. But like you said, I've seen a lot of people on Twitter saying that Michael Nicholson deserves a statue. It's a great day for specky Celtic fans. It's like all this sort of stuff, and I'm going, well, see, to be honest, this was the guy that wanted Bernard Higgins in the club last year, and this was the guy that possibly could have cost us winning that league with I don't know if you remember it, Matt, but there was 3 games in that season where, I mean, I was in the stadium for all 3 of the games, and for the first half of the games, the stadium was quiet, and seeing two of those games, Celtic were drawing 0-0 at half time.
I think we dropped points on 2 of them, mate, and
Yeah,
you're
we
absolutely
did.
right. It was decisions like that led to unrest amongst the support. It actually split sections of the support. The Green Brigade and the boys, they decided to keep quiet, and it was creating a wee atmosphere that nobody wanted. It's not as simple as just saying, right, okay, if you're not liking the noise, the quiet, just start singing. There's a lot of politics involved in football support, and you can't be seen to be going against the grain, especially in small numbers. You need to pick your battles, and you need to pick who you're fighting with. Now, Michael Nicholson, I'm not going to labour the point too much because I've spoken about him a few times, but I mean, I seen the same comments to you. It was a great day for Ginger Specky fans that this guy's come up here, rose up like a phoenix through the ashes. No, this guy was the same guy who sat by and let reports circulate for about 10 weeks that the guy who caused so much misery for football fans in Scotland, particularly Celtic fans, was going to be allowed onto the Celtic setup. I mean, if anybody thinks that was a good idea at the time, it's revisionism, they're lying. So see these posts on Twitter with what a job this man's doing, and I'm one more signing away from erecting a statue for this guy. Listen, this guy was part of the stuffy board for the last 10 years. He was the legal side of transfers, and every single Celtic fan of the last 10, 15, 20 years has moaned how Celtic get deals over the line, stumbling over £500 a week, £1,000 a week, waiting to the last minute to sign players to save a month's wages, leaving us with centre backs playing at right backs playing in holding midfielders in big games and Champions League qualifiers, gambling at every opportunity. So I think before anybody starts busting Michael Nicholson bunting out their arse, that they have to realise that this guy was well in amongst the club when there was bad decisions getting made. And don't think for a minute he's a saviour and he's one of us. He's not one of us. We've got a board that's stuffy, and okay, we're not going to be negative because that is 2 excellent pieces of business. And do you know something? I applaud the club for signing the players, but that money has got to have been set aside previously. We don't budget for Champions League money, so that's £40 million that we don't budget for. Now, we'd be ill-advised as a company to bank on us winning the league every season and qualifying for the Champions League. You can't bank on that. You've got projected figures. Celtic, I've said before, these figures are bonus figures to the club. So if we had money set aside to potentially buy Jota and Carter Vickers, should they have been successful, which they were, then that money was already set in motion. That deal was already set in motion a long time ago. So we've still got a lot of business to do. I think we'll speak about it later. We've still got areas to the park that we need to address. It's not the case for me that Celtic are standing still buying these 2 players. We've bought 2 players who are at ages where they're going to progress. So we're going to see the best years of these players. I'll tell you what standing still is: signing a 40-year-old keeper and a 38-year-old midfielder who their best days are long behind them on 1-year extensions. That's what you call going backwards and stagnating.
Yeah, I mean,
we know
Mark,
we did that.
I just want to speak about a point that you spoke about there, and that was the fact that people were putting a lot of praise on Michael Nicholson. I just want to say this balanced point. It's okay to praise Nicholson, but it's okay to be negative towards him as well.
Mm-hmm.
I think people get this notion that they think, oh well, he's done great business with Jota, so we can't criticise him. Of course, you can still criticise somebody. It's the same with Ange. It's the same with Ange. If Ange is, if me and Mark are on the Sunday club during the season and we're not happy with Ange, choice he's made in the team, we're still going to say, look, Ange, this is what we're doing. That doesn't mean that we don't like the manager. We don't want the manager to be successful.
Absolutely, mate. I mean, you've got your right to have an opinion. If you want an echo chamber, brilliant. Just go and listen to yourself speaking. You've got to have opinions, and see, because you criticise a bad decision or a bad move by the club or the management doesn't mean you're criticising everything they do. I mean, last season, after 10 games, I was still batting Ange, but was I totally convinced that everything was going to go rosy? No, I wasn't. So see just now, mate, it's off season. We're all still celebrating last year's success, and rightly so. We deserved every single drink we had and every single party we had. We deserved it as a football fan base for the previous season, which was a disaster. But you know, if 5 games into the season and we're making mistakes that we've seen repeated, we will call them out. Russell will call them out. David Lowe will call them out. We will say it. It doesn't mean that we're not supporting Ange or we're not supporting anybody at the club. We're just calling out what we see. You know, for you to have to actually say that it's okay to criticise Michael Nicholson tells you that there's a thought or at least a thinking that there's folk that don't want to hear it. And that's not the case, mate. That's not the case. You have your opinion and you say it, and if you don't like it, great, let's talk about it.
I mean, it's the same fans that'll not want to criticise him, but then if he makes one bad call, they'll be the first people to come on here and criticise him. And I think...
Well, that's true, mate. That's true.
And I think part of the problem we've got as a fan base is, see, if we don't criticise people and we don't praise them when they're good, well, it's like Ange said when Celtic won the title against United, he says next season planning starts next week. He's already planning for next season. So see, as much as like we say, Celtic fans need to enjoy it and they need to do this, but see, if we don't judge them for this season, well, what's the point of being so great to one last season? You need to be subjective in what you're seeing, because if you're always saying, "Oh, I'm just fantastic," he's this, he's that, then you're not being. I don't think you're being truthful in what you're saying, because what's the point of always saying the one opinion just to get yourself by? If you see something, I think it's important that people say what they think and not just say it to go along with it.
I think everybody's entitled to their opinion, mate, and they're entitled to have an honest opinion with themselves. You know what I mean? It's totally irrelevant. But you look at, like, say, Arsene Wenger at Arsenal. I mean, he stayed at that club a very long time after he should have left, and there was probably a split in their fan base of folk that were saying, "Yeah, everything's gone bad just now, but we thank you for the times, and maybe it's time. Maybe thank you for the good times. You need to move on now." But there's been a bit even larger section that says, like, we need to live in the moment. We need to realise where we are and realise that we're not going to be getting any better under this guy. And that's the thing, you know. It's like if you've got to call it out the way you see it. You know what I mean? And the topic of Ange and that is totally different, but it's got the same point. You know, like with Michael Nicholson and the board and things like that. We only see figureheads. You know, we don't see the actual structure of the club itself. We only see figureheads like the CEO, the management, coaching staff. But these guys that are figureheads, these are the guys that are making the key decisions. And if you get guys like Michael Nicholson, who is actively going against the wishes of the fans, and then that fan base is up in arms, and then a few months later, because we get two really, really good signings, that the fan base is wanting to erect statues. I know it's said tongue in cheek, but it's ridiculous.
I mean, Mark, I just thought about this, right? But don't forget, this was a guy that wasn't elected as a Celtic chief executive. This was a guy that was brought in to temporarily because of Don Mackay wasn't football ready. You know,
that's right. It's amazing. One thing about Celtic, guys, I find it amazing. See, it was put in charge for 3 months temporary basis till we found somebody. So Celtic have set up a network to scout the best guy to do this, which I assume that any business the size of Celtic would look for the best candidate. And they travelled the globe, they travelled everywhere, and they get back to their very front door and found that the guy who was the best person for the role was already there. It's the same with Gordon Strachan. We gave him the 3-month stint in charge of the career structure in the back, the training department and things like that. And it's amazing how we scoured the country for the best coaches and the guy who we found just happened to be our old manager and the CEO's best pal. Isn't it? It's a funny old world, isn't it?
I mean, I think Strachan was brought in to see over Fran Alonso and see over ladies football. No disrespect, but I don't know how he specialises in that structure.
Well, you can specialise in it by just having been on speed dial by the people at Celtic who matter. I mean, all you got to do is look over the city at Dundee, and Gordon Strachan is doing a bigger role at Dundee. He's actually got a really important role at Dundee, and it just so happened to be the guy who is one of his best mates for Aberdeen. Happened to be the guy he found to be the best man for the job at Dundee. It's funny, as I say, it's a funny old world, isn't it?
I know that people can use their pals, but I just don't want that to settle in at Celtic. And I just don't. I want the club to try and move forward in the best possible way, because see, if you look at all the big clubs work in the best possible way because they've got the best possible people in charge. No, I'm not saying Brentford is a great club, but see the way Brentford run it or Manchester City run it, they've got the best people in charge for every single situation.
Yeah, they've actually identified the best candidates for every role, or at least the best candidates that can match each other's ambitions and work with each other. And that's something that Celtic have long since no had. We've got some sort of Celtic nepotism and old players walking into coaches' jobs for 20 years, and we've got old staff lingering around for years and years. And I mean, it goes back to the old Kennedy and Stratton debate. I mean, we've spoken about that ad nauseum, but I mean, they seem to have been doing a good job under Ange again, but I just don't believe that these guys are the best we can get. You know what I mean? It's like I've said it before. I don't know if I've said it on the show. I don't want to ever see Celtic ever appoint an ex-player as a manager, and the reason why I say that is because the love-in is far too strong. See, the minute things go sour and start to go really sour, it takes far too long for the fan base and the board to make a decision. I'm not saying we should have a support in a club leadership that would press a button on a manager far too fast and sack him. But see, if you've got a manager, i.e. Neil Lennon, who has got a real foothold in the club, it takes a very long time, a very, very long time, normally till it's far too late for decisions to be made. I think if you look at any business, Brentford maybe mentioned in Man City, are they going to hire somebody who's got a connection with the club just to appease certain romantic sections of the fan base? No. They're going to look out and see the best possible candidate, and that's how a business should work. I mean, we're in the London Stock Exchange. We're a big business. We try and go by company best practice. We follow the rules. But we're having CEOs in charge for 15 years, board members in charge of 10 years. That's like 3 or 4 times longer than you're supposed to have it. And that just breeds nepotism.
I mean, you Dermot Desmond last year saying that Neil Lennon was, I mean, he still had faith in him when he was 20 points behind, and Neil Lennon totally was worth a little bit more time to try and turn that around. Everybody could see when he was 20 points behind, there was no way I would turn that around.
I can see that in October, mate. I'm not going to lie. Yeah, I was.
No.
And you can see the wheels were in motion. That was, in fact, as you said last week, the wheels were falling after the bus a long, long time before somebody opened the door and dragged him off the wheel. You know what I mean? And I think we should move on, because I think I could talk about this board for about 2 days, and I don't think for what listening to me, I just think you're absolutely spot on. I think we should just leave the full praise until we start to really, really back this manager. We've spent £18 million. I think Maida, Carter Vickers and Jota were already set in motion.
Yeah, I agree with that as well.
Seagrass is an absolutely phenomenal keeper. Me and you mentioned him weeks ago when we were talking about who we want to come in.
He's fantastic.
And Bernabei looks awful exciting. it looks to me, with the clips I've seen, that he looks very much like a CAIRNEY type aggressive defender who's going to spend a lot of his time maybe 5-10 yards away from the halfway line rather than helping the defence. But that's fine with me.
Mark, I just want to ask you finally on Jota, right? Because I think
Aye.
one of the big reasons why Jota's signed is because Celtic last season, I think there was a really good feel-good factor when every single player bought into it. I supposed to call glue and you Jack and Marcus tell them, Jota, you better sign in the summer. You'd Juranovic talking to him. You'd Starfelt, who we went to Spain with him as well. So you'd so many things that obviously, and I think for Celtic to get Jota, it's a big deal because he was so good last year.
Oh, he was well sought after, and I'm pretty sure there have been frantic discussions in the January window with Benfica and Jota's representatives to try and find out where his head was at, and to find out if there was a chance of him extending his deal, because I think very early Jota must have fell in love with Celtic. It's hard not to fall in love with Celtic, and even though we are embroiled in it, it doesn't take long for guys from different countries and different cultures to come in and realise just how special this place is. And it's easy for me to say because I play for Celtic for nothing, but when you walk out there and you see that fan base and you see just the love and adulation you get, it would be hard to walk away from that. I'm sure Benfica, the fans are passionate, you know what I mean? The big massive stadium normally play well in Europe, but the guys made the decision. Maybe there's two reasons. Maybe there's the fact that he's fell in love with that camaraderie that you're talking about with the players and the fans. But maybe his career move, it was the best for him because he knows he's going to get. I think he's a shoe in for a starting place. And don't forget, England's down the road, and that's a real short window for players as England and as Scotland, and especially Celtic players. We're still the team that players look at up these waters to see where the level is at. Our Rangers had a good season last season. They got to the UEFA Cup final and they only got 97 penalties to do it. But other than that, the English teams look at Celtic and they see where Celtic are at before they start judging where Scottish football's at, in my opinion.
So Jota then, what kind of targets do you think you'll be setting for how many he'll be set to score this season, Mark? What are you thinking for him?
I think he's got the ability to do double figures. I think if he'd have comfortably have scored 15 goals last season if he hadn't had that layoff. I think he was out for about 10 weeks. I might be wrong. Somebody can correct me in the comments. And I think the same for Abada. Give that guy an extra 10 games next season and he'll be hitting nearly 20 goals. We've got a lot of creativity and width, and that's a Celtic team. That's the Celtic teams I remember growing up. Is we've always had good width, always had good overlaps, and Ange's brought that back in. He's like actually typified the Celtic way of playing football. It's a different style of it, a different brand of it, but it's very much attacking. And he's kind of quashed my fears a wee bit because I was worried that with the swashbuckling football, the defence would be forgotten about, but that's far from the case. We lost the least goals last season, and I think almost 70% of the goals we lost last season were due to set pieces, which is fixable. But the actual in play management of the defence must be particularly good.
Aye. So now we're going to go on to I would say a kind of mixed feelings on Twitter over the past 24 hours. And that is a new Celtic home top. What are you making of it, Mark?
Well, I think Celtic fans in particular, we've always got a ownership, especially the home top, because it's iconic. And you associate football teams, Celtic teams of the past with the strips they wear. If you see, like, say, the 2016 New Balance strip, you just think of how we played that season. Or you think of the 95 strip, you think about how unlucky we were that season. So you it's more than just a tap to wear, and more than just it's representing who we are a wee bit, and that's where the emotion comes in for the Celtic fans. I was like you, Reegan. I wasn't a big fan of it yesterday, and I looked on Twitter, and the response was pretty damning. I think Adidas must have switched after notifications, but actually grew on me a wee bit, you know what I mean? And strips do grow on you. I mean, there's been a few bad ones early years, but you kind of get used to it. But all in all, I mean, I like the hoops. I've always liked the hoop socks on Celtic. I think Celtic should have a thing where they always have hoop socks. I think it's they did that for some of the very earliest days, and I'm a traditionalist. I think you should keep that forever. And it's the silver stripes for me that make it look a bit cheap, but I've no saw it in the flesh. I did see some photographs yesterday of guys up to the superstore, and they were saying, look, the tap looks a lot better in person, and don't let the photographs fool you. But I've not been enamoured by Adidas, mate. I was really looking forward to Adidas, and I've bought every strip, tracksuits, you name it. I buy any shite, but I've actually not been that impressed with some of the stuff they've brought out, to be honest with you, mate. What about you?
No, I've not been impressed by it, but I'm glad to see so many positive comments coming in because obviously we want people to buy it. And when I texted you yesterday, you said that I think you said Jota sold out. Where did you say?
The only tap you can get in JD online was the long sleeves, but they were sold. In fact, they sold out every strip except extra small within about half an hour, I think.
For God's sake!
And JD are our official partners, so they must have a great level of stock. But see, because we're Adidas probably have like the holding rights to a lot of the strips. You know what I mean? They probably have like a big massive, collection, big massive stock base compared to like the retailers. You know what I mean? And even the Celtic store will be getting their numbers for Adidas and how much they're getting. You know, because if you buy for Adidas, you don't get you certainly get a lot less money than when you buy direct for the club. That's a fact. You know what I mean? I think roughly it's about 40% or something like that. Goes to the club when you buy out with the actual superstore. I might be wrong with that exact figure, but it's not as high as what you'd think. So I think the tap's going to sell it. The tap, I mean, see if the only taps that I can think about, Celtic tops I can think about that haven't sold is, remember the grey and pink strip?
Aye.
I buy every strip. You can honestly. It's probably maybe only about 5 or 6 in maybe the last 25, 30 years that I've not got, right? And that's one of them. I just didn't like it. I just thought it was, I don't know, and I just didn't like it. And I did see a leak last night of a grey.
Yeah, did you as well? Grey one, yeah.
A grey and banana yellow Celtic badge. I think it's got a white collar, so it could actually, let me see it. It could actually be phenomenal. But
I think it'd be nice, aye.
But I think it'll sell, mate. You know, I think it doesn't matter what it is. It's still the home top, and that's always our best seller. I think the away top this year is particularly really nice. The black with the pinstripes. You know, it harps back to the good old bad days in the 90s when we won fuck all, but we always had good strips.
I prefer the black one with no sponsor. She see the no sponsor on it. I don't know how so many people are getting the no sponsor. Is the club making sure you get no sponsor this year?
No, they've always had that option ever since the laws changed on gambling and alcohol advertising. They've always given people the right to choose a strip. But I've never bought one without the sponsor. Some of it looks good, mate, but I think sometimes when you see it, it can look a bit fake. I know, obviously, clearly it's not fake, but it can look a bit fake when it's not got that blazer and tap it. Especially especially if you're a taller person, it looks like there's just that and just nothing. You know what I mean? I've not got that money. But, if I'm about 2'9", so I'm alright. I'm fine. But nah, I quite like the shorts and socks. It's grown on me. It's grown on me, and I think it's the fan base. The minute the Celtic team walk out and the sun bounces off of the white hoops, and it's just going to look like a Celtic strip, and that's all it's going to matter. We're going to buy it.
I know exactly. Now we're going to move on to a different talking point, and that is the fact about Celtic and during this transfer window. What do you think is next on Celtic's shopping list?
I think number 10 and a defensive midfielder have got to be priorities for Ange, and I think it will be. I remember the speaking of that boy Sousa. That's been really quiet actually. That tells me that there has been discussions at the very beginning the press has got a hold of it, and then it's just been left at that. And so I think for me, we need a defensive midfielder. I don't think Adaguchi. Let me see him play first before I judge him. But I don't know if he's ready to walk in and be that man for Celtic. Don't forget we've lost Beaton there as well. I mean, I don't think McCarthy's going to do a job for Celtic long term or even short term. And Rogic is a big miss for Celtic. I know we've got
he's
Matt
massive.
Riley there. We've got Matt Riley there and David Turnbull. David Turnbull's injury kind of history might scupper him at Celtic, and I think he might be sold as well. I think West Ham are speaking about him. And
I was just going to say that. I did see a lot of people mentioning West Ham for David Turnbull. Do you think that's a possibility?
Well, it's not going away, mate. It's not going away. It was mentioned for the very first days, a close season, and it's still getting mentioned up to recently. So I think there's also obviously a wee bit of bite to that rumour. You know what I mean? I don't think he'd walk into a West Ham team. I think West Ham would entertain that level of player, to be honest with you. But I think he's at a decent level. But if we sign another number 10, I think he'd be third choice. But I think Matt Riley can do that role perfectly. He reminds me very much of Tom Rogic.
Yep.
But we can't hang our hat on him. You know, we're going to have to. For me, the priority for me is a number 10, or does it have to be a number 10? It could be like a Rogic type player that can just play in that pocket. Right?
To play devil's advocate, right? Do you think that Ange already knew Rogic was away, and that's why he brought him in January?
I think Ange persuaded him to stay one more season last year.
Aye.
I think he was ready to go last year, and I don't think it's took much persuasion. I think him and Beaton maybe had a wee eye somewhere, and Tom Rogic, he's no sign for a team yet, but there'll be guys out there, the clubs out there want to give him $100,000 a week. See, in Saudi Arabia and all these kind of places, he'll be well sought after, and he's for a part of the world where there's a lot of money in the league about it, and he's able to walk into any of their teams and light the league up. He'd be the best player in the league overnight, I think, or at least one of them. And I mean, actually, for me, he had probably his best full season at Celtic last year. We've seen the starts Rogic playing well and then getting injured, but last season his contribution was phenomenal. And it's just their luck that he started to play fantastic again, and he left. You look at the game at Easter Road when he got injured. I mean, he was unplayable that day. That's a phrase that's branded about quite a lot, but that night he was just phenomenal. He was, everything he touched was turning into gold. Do you know what I mean? And we need to replace that. Maybe not like for like quality wise, but we need the numbers there, and I think that'll be key. And I think Ange, as you said, Ange said to him last season, look, I'm going to need as many people as I can to back me and buy into me, and you could be a voice behind the scenes to the players and help me transition into this club. And I think he done a fantastic job for us. And maybe it's not a coincidence that his best season at Celtic in a long time came under a guy who just knows exactly how to play him.
See, Dale made a good point there, and it's do you think Ange will bring a striker in? Because for me, obviously Kyogo, right? Kyogo is fantastic, but I'm not going to lie, but I was kind of worried when Kyogo got injured at St Johnstone. I'm thinking, where are the goals going to come from? And then Giakoumakis has got injured. So, as much as Kyogo and Giakoumakis have done well, we also need to look at it and go, do you think Kyogo and Giakoumakis will not go through the season without picking up wee small injuries? So, I'm thinking that Ange will be saying we need another striker, because as much as we totally love Giakoumakis, and I would love to play him every single week, I don't think he's that kind of striker where you could say that you're going to start every single game. I think he's going to get a few injuries, and we're going to stay without him for about maybe 6 to 8 weeks. So I think it's all about forward planning, and surely Ange's thought about that, because if you look at Giakoumakis when he first came in, he played against Alloa, and then he got injured in the warm-up in the following game. So you're kind of thinking, if something like that happens again, then I think you're in big trouble.
I think you'd be very naive to think that you could rely on two players who have got a record of injuries to get you through a season. I was going to say we got lucky last year. We didn't get lucky. It was well planned by Ange to bring in all the players in January. And I think Maida especially helped us an awful lot during that period when we had Kyogo and Giacomakis was just hitting the ground. Because Giacomakis, don't forget, with his contract situation last year, he was never going to report back to training for his team.
Yep.
So he just went for a Jota style holiday. He just 6 weeks on the beach, eating and drinking and all the rest of it, and before his situation was resolved. And so that could be. I mean, don't forget. So he was doing pre-season when the Celtic squad were playing against Hearts at Tynecastle and all the rest of it, and so it took a long time for him to catch up, and especially the Brandad defending training we are doing. I've heard ex-players speak about how intense it is. So that could have probably set him back. He set his body back a bit and probably contributed to, which was a bad injury. I think he was out for a wee length of time. And Kyogo, I think Kyogo had 3 injuries last year at his hamstring. Is that right? So he's maybe got a wee bit of history. Or I think one was his knee, sorry. But I think he's got a wee bit of history with that. So a striker has got to be a priority as well, because you can't just rely on 2 guys who are going to get injured, let's be honest, carrying you through the season. Whether that's a player that's going to come in and be a challenger to they two, I don't think so. I don't think we've got the money to spend on a £5-6 million player. I think we'll get somebody who's like a kind of work in progress. I mean, there's an excellent player who's just signed for Watford. Bio, I think he might do a job for us if we can sign him on loan.
Yeah, I did see that, and I also did see that Barcastle let in 4 goals against Queen's Park.
I saw the goals on Twitter. Actually, they're on Twitter. Some Queen's Park fan went there with his camcorder and recorded them. So I saw 3 of the goals, and I think I could have caught at least 2 of them, mate. It was.
Send me that later.
I'll send you after the show, mate. I mean, I did see it was misquoted a wee bit when they were talking about him. He would advise players not to sign for Celtic. The quote was misinterpreted. I seemingly said that he wouldn't advise himself to have made that move if he could have been back. He wouldn't have made that move. You know what I mean? But the guy was just. I'm sure he's a keeper at some level, but he's not a Celtic keeper, and I think that was proven yesterday. I mean, if you're playing against Queen's Park, who are butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers, and you're losing 4 goals. Yeah, there's something wrong with you, mate.
Yeah. And I just want to ask you something about someone who's possibly leaving Celtic, and that is Julian, right? Now, I have people telling me that Julian he didn't move to Schalke because it was personal terms. Now, that is a lot of rubbish, because surely he goes over there knowing what they're going to offer him on a wage.
I will. Similarly, sorry, mate. Similarly, the reports were it wasn't that. It was so Celtic were going to trigger this clause. It was 1 more year extension, right? Which meant it was a loan to buy, and what seemingly Julian was unhappy with was the terms after that. So see the term the loan to buy. So see the buy option, the wage structure or the terms of deal on his second season wasn't going to be what he was expecting. So basically, he was going to take a pay cut for Celtic on the second season, and he wasn't going to do it.
See, but I'm thinking, surely if you're Julian, you just want to play, because for me,
Well,
Mark, I don't know what you think, Mark, but I think surely Julian knows that he's not in favour with Ange Postecoglou or this Celtic squad, because he's not wanted there.
Well, there's also French arrogance, but there's also arrogance in your ability. I was talking to somebody the other day there, and they were telling me that he's a better option than Starfelt. I mean, I don't know.
No way.
I wasn't a big fan of Julian, mate. I thought he was a bit of I thought he just danced around like Bambi on ice. I didn't like. I even when Celtic were winning and he was contributing goals and he was playing well, I was looking at his defensive qualities, and I don't think he's an Ange player. And put it this way, see, Ange does look to me like he's an unfair guy. See if he was showing up to training every day and giving the right impression, I think he would be part of a lot of match day squads. The fact that he's only featured once for Ange tells you more about him than it does about the Ange, you know what I mean? And I think anybody that spoke about Postecoglou for his previous clubs and all players has said that, see if he thinks you're not buying into it or he thinks that you're not pulling your weight, you're not even going to get a minute under him. He's just going to ostracise you because he's not up for anybody that for playing silly beggars. You're either all in or you're no fucking in, and he's no fucking in. You know what I mean?
Scott McDonald was on, I think it was either Go Radio or Clyde One. He said something. I don't know if you've seen the clip, Mark, but he basically said that I was Andrew's top man in Australia. I played every game, but we got to the final of, I think it was a World Cup playoff, and he said, "Look, Scott, I don't think I'm going to play you today." And he went, "What?" He says, "I'm your captain and I'm your player, and you're not going to play me." He says, "I just don't think you fit my system for today." You know what I mean?
Well, that's strong management and that's good management.
But
you know,
I think that just shows you that I don't think Andrew's there to make friends and be pally with Julian to go, right, well, I'll get you a bit of time, mate. You know what I mean? What's the point?
I totally agree. It was all players that was saying that you could sit in a 10-hour flight and you'd be in a seat next to him when they speak two words to you. And he's commented on these suggestions and he says, I'm not there to make pals. I don't want to get too close to anybody. I'm there and I'll speak about football and that is it. You know what I mean? And I'm not going to be getting drawn into getting like close bonds with players. I need to make harsh decisions. And to do that, you have to be outside that bubble. You know what I mean? And I'll go back to Lennon a wee bit. I mean, Lennon was like best pals with some of these players. Like him and Scott Brown. I mean, I think he was called.
Leigh Griffiths.
Aye, exactly. And on Leigh Griffiths.
Yes, on Leigh.
I've seen. We're now halfway through the window, and that guy's not got a club. And I think what a waste of a player that is. You know, like, I think Celtic and him both let the ball drop on that. You know what I mean? And he takes responsibility, almost all responsibility. But Celtic have got to protect their assets. And I know we gave the guy a lot of chances, and probably too many chances in terms of some of the things he was getting up to. But I wonder.
We definitely did, but
I wonder what more we could have done to protect our the man as such. We'll get back to that, but to protect our asset, because the guy could have scored 200 goals for Celtic. I think if he played even half the amount of games that he's missed, you know what I mean. And he had mental issues and he had physical issues. Maybe the two of them are combined into one. I don't really know, but I just think that the guy is totally let himself down, and it's amazing that we're sitting now. A guy who was signed for this time last year was signed in a 1-year extension for Celtic, who's now looking at a situation where nobody's wanting to touch him. Nobody even want to speak to him. I mean, the Falkirk fans were up in arms last year when they got a contract for them.
aye.
That was for reasons outside of football, but it's just feel like what a waste of talent that is. I mean, this is a guy who scored 2 goals against England, two absolute world class. Scored 45 goals or something one season for Celtic, and
he did.
He scored in the Champions League, and his natural finishing is up there with one of the best I've ever seen at Celtic. He was a right sniper, you know what I mean. And I think if he'd played for any other team in Scotland, like even like a Rangers, and he was kept fit, he would have been a player that I hated watching. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean that the comment coming through. I did mention that to you earlier, Mark. That probably was side for Open Goal FC.
You did mention that, mate, and I'm not entirely sure what level this team is at. I thought it was a bit of a joke figure club. You know what I mean? Where are they playing?
They're in the Lowland League with Celtic B and Rangers B.
Right, I see. I mean, it depends. I mean, he's still got a bit of level. I mean, I'm pretty sure he can still command a 4 or 5 grand a week contract, or even double that in a club in a team in Australia or something like that. You know what I mean? So depends what kind of where he's at as a mentally. You know what I mean? Whether he's able to move abroad or move to England, because his CV is phenomenal and somebody will take a chance on him. They did about that. It's just that I just find it bizarre that we're at this stage and the guy's probably training by himself in a park, you know what I mean? And
then probably from a Celtic point of view, they'd probably say it's probably too much baggage for him.
Aye.
That's probably what they would tell you.
He was far too much baggage, mate. I was really disappointed in the club for signing him last year. And I think I was actually at the West Ham game when they got booed. And it wasn't nice to see, mate. It really wasn't nice. Like, I think the guy gave us a lot of good moments in his Celtic career, and sometimes you need to try and like separate the player from the man, and it's hard to do that. You know what I mean? And we're a club that take a lot of pride in how we are represented, and the guys who play for us, and the guys who manages, and so we take it personally when a guy who we feel like isn't up to the task of wearing that badge is representing us, and that was always going to be the case. There only has one winner there, and I actually think that, see if he'd get through that week or two and somebody had doused the flames a wee bit like an Ange, or I think he might have actually had a season at Celtic last year. I think it was just evident for that match that his career was over. In fact, they said that he was crying in the car on the way home. He said to whoever his partner or whatever, he just said that my career's over at Celtic. I'll never play for him. I know for a fact I won't. And for a guy who's as vulnerable as him, I say vulnerable, the guy is red. Even when he's at the top of his game, he's only ever one moment away from doing something really fucking stupid. You know what I mean? And as you say, far too much baggage. I think ability-wise, I think he could still play for an Aberdeen, Hearts, maybe even a Celtic. He could be the third choice striker at Celtic. He's 31-year-old. I mean, I think ability-wise, I think he could score 15, 20 goals. It's still the new. I mean, I think a good coaching staff and a good diet could get him fit again, and maybe some work on his mental side of it. But
Mark,
I just don't think he's just too much baggage, mate. And I don't think Ange would put up with a wee naff coming into training 5 minutes late.
I mean, I'm all for people interacting on Instagram or Facebook or Twitter or whatever. I love it when players talk to fans, but I think Leigh Griffiths, for a player like him, I think Leigh Griffiths would probably, it'd be better to keep a low profile and stay fit and just try and do his best.
Well, he had his chance, mate, didn't he? I think that was the advice he was given.
I think that's what caused him harm. I think that's why you see players like McGregor and players like that. They don't even go on social media because they know how big a part of social media can play nowadays. It's so big.
Well, I mean, I don't know if it's ever happened to you, Reegan, but if you see you ever had a bad day on Twitter or on Facebook, whatever, it affects you mentally. So see if you're having a hard time on the park as a Celtic player and you log into Twitter and there's 25,000 messages telling you how shite you are, that's going to grate on you. So I think the reason why guys like Carl McGregor and that can just focus on the football nowadays, especially this is new sort of multimedia is the world now, you know what I mean? And the reason why these guys can focus on their football is because they probably get burner accounts that they'll maybe have just for their family and friends, and nobody's going to give them bad comments. But this guy couldn't help himself. I think he's in his 30s, so he's not in the young generation, but he's grew up needing that affection of people online, and I think he's just always liable to have 4 cans before his bed and log in and just see the comments and start sniping back and start sending me lasses and women that he's not married to messages.
Yeah, I mean, look, even for someone like me or you, Mark, we know how big a part of social media can play, and obviously it's good to interact with people on YouTube or Twitter and see people at Celtic Park and go, well, I can see you on the Boys and Bus, but obviously it plays a big part in people's life now, like you said.
Oh, definitely. See, I think social media is people's lives. If they go on holiday, the first thing they do, they can't wait to check in and send photographs of their steak pie dinner. And unless it's on social media, it didn't happen for some people. You know what I mean? I've only got Instagram and Twitter. I don't have Facebook and all the rest of it. So that's a kind of small level of it. But people's lives are played out by the media and social media, and they've all got this yearning to be noticed and be wanted by everybody else. And football players are no different. And I think some folk just can't handle the fact that they're in the limelight. And he was just one of them. Sometimes the people with a lot of ability, they tend to struggle with the human side of it.
I mean,
and he's one of them, I think.
Sorry, Matt, just a great point you made there about people been on holiday and putting their photos up and stuff like that. But like, that's these people with thousands of followers. Like I think like that's why like I think people strive to have loads of followers. But see, when you get loads of followers, if you say one bad thing, then everybody can jump on you and say something bad about you when really that's not what happened. And I think sometimes it can be twisted by the media as well. I mean, look at the Australian guy playing tennis last night. I mean, I know that some things in the past he's done bad, but I think he's a fantastic tennis player. And the Scottish guy on commentary was just terrible the full game.
Russell actually was messaging me about that. He was telling me that, and I seen it on social media and all.
It was awful.
I mean, it's the BBC are terrible anyway, mate. They've got their own politics and their own agenda, and that's it. You know what I mean? And in general, the BBC, like even the radio shows, they're terrible, mate. And I don't think for a minute.
I don't watch it at all.
I didn't watch it, mate. But see, Twitter last night was just awash with folks saying the commentary on this is unbelievable. I don't know the details. I really don't know the intricate details of what the guys did and what was said on Twitter last night on the actual show. But on Twitter was just awash with it. And I don't watch tennis anymore, but seemingly the guy was getting it right tight by the commentators. I think they were actually shouting the other guy on, literally shouting the other guy on. And
they were.
I mean, the BBC's there to inform, entertain, and educate. It's not there to put its narrative across to us. And
the BBC is a public service broadcaster.
Exactly, mate. And they don't act like it, mate.
That's why I don't watch it anymore. Because
I did see the BBC have bought rights to the Champions League highlights in 2024, 25, something like that. Which is interesting. I didn't think they could afford that, but maybe the Queen's going to sell one of his.
Yeah, but I do find it strange that sometimes this player can be a bad guy, then when he becomes good, everybody starts to jump on him still anyway. I just find it strange. I think sometimes we need to be watch what we're saying, watch what we're doing, because obviously this guy's a fantastic tennis player. He's obviously he's done some things in the past, but I think sometimes it's important to move on. And
I think you can drive people out the sport by crushing them by all this sort of stuff. You know what I mean? And the guy might get to the stage where he just goes, enough's enough. I mean, it's probably it's the first time it's happened to him. You know what I mean? It must be something that he sees quite a lot.
It's like you said that West Ham game for Leigh Griffiths. I mean, Leigh Griffiths knew as soon as that was done that Twitter would just explode. And see, to me, that's where the modern world, like that's where it kind of freaks me out a bit and goes like that shouldn't be happening. You know what I mean? Shouldn't be happening.
No, there's nothing more damning than the written word, mate. See, once it's written down or typed onto a screen, it becomes gospel, and people don't want to know the backdrop here, or they don't want to hear your explanation why you've said that. I mean, it's even happened to me, mate, at smaller scales. And we've all been on Twitter right after this Celtic game, and we've lost or something, and we've just called out as we've seen it in that moment, and you can't back down to it. And no matter how many times you try to explain yourself, it's just not going to work. The first comment is the comment that matters to them, and no matter. I mean, Twitter is just a fucking hellhole at times. I'm very extremely small scale, and even like just in the Celtic Twitter, you know what I mean, we're all tweeting each other every day and all this. So you can imagine maybe 100,000 followers and the abuse folk must get. You know what I mean? You drive these guys away from the sport.
I mean, I bet like these people. Like, I just hate it when some people screenshot tweets that someone sent about 2 years ago saying that this player's a bad player, but now they're saying he's a good player. Who cares what they said 2 years ago? It doesn't matter.
There was an Australian journalist. He took screenshots of 10 of my tweets when Ange signed, and every time we were winning a big match, he was tweeting me. That's a picture of my message, and he go to the stage. I think his name is Sasha something. So I go to the stage. See me we won at Ibrox 2-1. He sent me a message on Twitter, and I just said, mate, listen, can you just let me enjoy the moment? And I ended up just blocking him. But he's an Australian journalist. He's got a very verified blue tick and all that. The guy was wild. I mean, on his actual homepage, there's maybe about 20, 30 guys that he was constantly reminding of the fact that we said that this guy could be a disaster. You know what I mean? Like we all did. You know, I mean, the day he, don't I go back to Ange again, but the day he signed, there was the Wani odds. It was going out and buying the famous kangaroos that are blown up. Not Wani's, not Wani. It was. I mean, we were all staring at the offer tours and checking Twitter to see what Rangers fans were saying about us. You know what I mean? Of course we were. So, I mean, and this is the same Australian media that wanted him sacked when he was a youth coach.
Aye.
You know what I mean? So, oh God, anyway.
I mean, obviously, we didn't expect to talk about social media there, but I think it's important to bring that up when you spoke about Leigh Griffiths on Facebook and Twitter and that, because it's not just Leigh Griffiths, it's you, it's me, it's anybody that's on the bus, and it's important that you don't get bogged down by what people see on social media, because sometimes it can be a terrible place to be.
Absolutely, mate, and everybody's entitled to their opinion. You know what I mean? And I mean, I quite a lot. I put a wee prefix on my tweet just saying, "But that's your opinion. That's fine." And I shouldn't need to say that all the time, but I think sometimes you've got to just remind people that you're giving them their opinion, you're letting them have, and vice versa. You know what I mean? We've all said things that you look back on and say, "Well, that was totally wrong." You know what I mean? And I've had reservations about certain players, and you know what I mean. And it's spoke about very often, but I mean, can you imagine Twitter? The day that Dunfermline beat Hibs beat us under Wim Jansen, you know what I mean? Can you imagine Twitter in the mid-90s? I mean, Tommy Burns, we all love him, and the football we played that season, that we lost one game, we should have won the league. Football was phenomenal, but can you imagine Twitter and Facebook, if we had it back then? These guys would have had to have had the corner.
Terrible. And I think that's why sometimes I wish that Twitter wasn't there, because you look at someone like Chris Sutton and John Hartson, these people, they must have like 20,000 followers, and they must need to pick and
far more than that, mate. They maybe got about 100,000 followers, a lot of them, and I'd say about 5% of them wish them well. So they're all just watching for one bad sentence. I mean, and even on the Leigh Griffiths thing as well. Can you imagine every letter being scrutinised by folk that dislike you, and scrutinised by a fan base that's waiting for you to make a mistake? And God, it only takes one too many drinks, and I can say what I want, but if a guy like that does it, you know, it's fucking, it blows up, and it could cost him his career, and it could cost him everything. You know what I mean? And there has been I think his mental attitude, his mental state, has been made worse by decisions that he's made, by going on social media and all the rest of it. It's hard to get inside the guy's head, because that's no fair. The guy's obviously had problems.
And I think that's why, like you say, that so many players or managers or ex-players don't come on podcasts or don't do interviews, because they know that if they get a bad message, then it's, you know.
Aye, of course, and they're maybe scared to be given the impression that they're, they're biased for one club, because a lot of them get media careers now and all the rest, and they kind of try and pretend some level of impartiality. You know what I mean? And also they're scared in case they maybe are part of a podcast. It's maybe a week or so later has posted something that they shouldn't have posted, and it's, before you know it, it's branded that he's part of that. You know what I mean? Or she's part of that. So I agree with you there, mate. I agree with you. It's a good thing, but it can be a fucking horrible thing as well, mate.
And I think that's why players don't message back some fans, because they probably get probably 10 bad messages, but one terrible message. You know what I mean?
I think that's Leigh Griffiths phoning you, mate. He's one you get hold of. Open goals scouting department.
I think it's probably Ange. It's probably the Ange, the famous phone call for Ange that people are talking about.
Well, that's coming, mate. That's coming. Maybe Don Mackay. I heard he phones podcasters sometimes and tells them that he watches the show and he's a big fan and all this stuff.
Oh,
That's what I heard some people saying with funny wigs.
so Mark, finally we're going to move.
Do you like that one, son?
Finally, sorry guys. Finally, we're going to move on because Mark has got a few points he wants to bring up, and he said he wanted to mention them on the Sunday show today. So take it away, Mark.
It was just I watched Tuesday's show. With Russell and John. It was brilliant. It was actually one of the best shows that the bus had done. I'm not going to lie. I thought it was a great show. Some of the talking points were brilliant. I really wish I could have logged on and joined in. It was the one that really got me was the alcohol in stadiums. And now, I think it was Barry Ahern that came up for the BDO, and he spoke to the SFA about how they're going about getting.
Barry Ahern,
He was speaking to him. They actually paid for him to come up and do like a motivational speech or whatever it was. But it was journalists there. It's probably a bad move doing that. But he was speaking to them about. He said to them, "Look, if I was in charge, I'd sack the lotties." And he went on to say that the alcohol in stadiums ban is a restriction of trade. It could be challenged in court. Why isn't anybody challenging this? Now, the evidence of us losing a licensing law within stadiums, which isn't a law, by the way. I don't think it's a law because they still sell alcohol in stadiums. But we lost that in 1980. So you're talking guys that are in their 60s and 70s, probably more so guys in their 70s, is the reason why I can't get a drink in football stadiums. We can't be trusted as human beings to make a decision that we've had too many bottles of beer. We can't go down to a concourse at half time and have, let's be honest, 30 parks jam-packed, and even on quiet games, you can't get a pie. You'd be lucky if you get 2 pints a full match. But it's restriction of trade within the club. If you're charging £5-6 for a bottle of beer or a plastic bottle of Prosecco, they don't leave the concourse. You can't go to your seat with it. So the idea that you can fling that over the barrier to an opposing player or even a Celtic player is ridiculous. So, I mean, where does it stem from? Does it stem from the government's distaste for Celtic, for Scottish football? I think it does. It comes from the police's ineptitude in policing fans. I mean, I was at Murray Park. Murray Park. Murray. I would go there. I would go with that turquoise paint. They painted the gates with it the first day they opened up by mistake. But I went to Murrayfield, and there's something that riot police do where they kettle fans. So fans in big congregations, they kettle them into small sections and carry them through. Now there was a gate that was open, but it was able to double open for that, and they kept the two side ones closed, and they kettled, I'd say roughly about 10,000-15,000 Celtic fans into this wee small section. There was a crush hazard. My daughter was in front of me, and I was kind of holding her like that, and it was a real worry there was people shouting like people are going to get crushed here.
For God's sake.
See when you wear a football scarf, Reegan, you lose a lot of your civil rights. You wear a football scarf, you almost immediately become subject to police scrutiny. You almost become a hazard to society. You walk into a shop to buy a couple of cans, and there's people watching you like you're going to cause trouble. You're going to steal things, and it all goes down to this idea that's been perpetrated by the government that because you're a football fan that you're unable to make the right decisions. Now, there was MP. Sorry, mate. There was MPs, members of Parliament, like proper bona fide guys who are in lofty positions, tweeting false photographs of damage that occurred when Celtic won the league. There was a wee, I don't know what the building's called. It's next to the where we were all celebrating, and there was photographs inside of this what he said was damaged by Celtic fans. The photographs were screenshotted by a documentary. It was on YouTube, made 6 years ago. Right? He said the Celtic fans caused this and caused uproar in the streets. I was there. My dad was there. My brothers were there. There was nothing but guys partying. And okay, there was a bit of mess after it. But is there messes at Strathclyde Park when there's gigs on? Was Hampden covered in shite last night when there was a gig on? Of course it was. When you get crowds, people get drunk. Ask the people who run about the streets who were selling alcohol in their carry-out shops how much money they made, how much money that brought into the city. How much money is Celtic losing it? Is Rangers losing it? It's the smaller clubs like Partick Thistle, Hamilton Accies losing it by no
But if you
allowing
go to Celtic
these
for the
guys to buy a pint.
if you go to Celtic for the hospitality, you get it. So what's the difference?
Well, I've done it a few times, mate. But the thing is, you're not wearing a scarf, you're wearing a tie. And that makes a big difference to
And
these
I'll
people.
say to you, I went to Tottenham four times last year. I could get a beer at any time during the game. I can go up and get a beer.
Well, can I tell you something? See that rule
What's
was
the
brought
point?
in. Well, that rule was brought into force in 1980. See, in 1986, I think it was, there was a ban on all English football fans abroad and in Europe. So they get banned for playing in Europe, right? Basically, because of the behaviour of their fans. English football fans have got a bad reputation for alcohol abuse when they're drunk, when they're out watching their team, and the things that come with it, the violence, the unrest. So if that country looks at their statistics and thinks that their public is able to make a judgment to buy alcohol inside football stadiums, why is your government, who's telling us we're not doing enough to promote the game, why are they telling us that we're not capable of buying a drink? I think Glasgow is the only city that you can't drink alcohol outdoors. You buy alcohol outdoors and drink alcohol outdoors in Edinburgh. I mean, why Glasgow? Are we more likely to cause a fight? I mean, are we unable to make a decision as adults because we live in Glasgow?
Yeah, I mean,
I just don't. I just do not get it, mate. I watched the show on Tuesday and I had to say something.
Do you know the thing that really gets me is that why are we have got all these things that all these political parties are not allowing us to watch football with a pint, but then you've got a World Cup that have got so many so much bad about it, and we're actually having it in that country where you're not allowed to drink over there, you're not allowed to be gay over there, you're not allowed to do anything over there, but we're still having it and no one's saying anything about it. You know what I mean? That's
I think we pick and choose, but what we find is acceptable. You know what I mean? In fact, rugby stadiums you can buy it. See, you go to rugby, you can buy a pint of that because they're seemingly
but it's
a better class of citizen.
But it's like you said, people went to, I think it was the guy for One Direction, was it Ibrox the other week? Is that, you know what I'm talking about?
There only is One Direction from Ibrox and that's outside it, mate.
Anyway, this guy was doing a concert at Ibrox the other week and people were...
and they were buying alcohol.
And they were buying alcohol there, so what's the point?
It's restriction of trade, mate, and I mean... They've got a license to sell alcohol because there's bars in the stadium. So why is it not allowed? Why is nobody challenging this? It's like I remember the 2016 the riot on the pitch with Hibs and Rangers, and which went the riot. And the papers were saying, right, okay, that just puts to bed your calls for alcohol in stadiums. Every day there's 100 matches. Sorry, every weekend 100 matches across Scotland with supporters. How can you say one event happening every 20, 30 years is evidence that you can't be trusted?
See, if you go to the junior football, you'll get people going into the social club at half time, getting 2 beers, and then pop back inside to watch it.
You can see the guy sitting next to me. They've got 4 packs of lager. So that's money that Celtic won't see. See if that guy was able to buy a pint inside Celtic Park. These guys are still able to drink, you know what I mean? I just don't understand it. I think it's no challenged enough. It's just it's basically accepted. Like I'm 38 and I've never been to a Celtic match and had a drink in the stadium. I have been in hospitality a few times, but I never went to get a pint in the concourse. I did it once, and that was at Sunderland. That's all the time I've ever had a drink, and it's why can I get a drink down there? And the Polish trust me, and the government trust me to travel to England and get a drink. But my own country didn't trust me to have a drink.
I know I'm not saying anything bad on Scottish football, but I think it's bad that like you say, Mark, you can go half an hour down the road to Carlisle and get a pint at the Carlisle game. You know, what's the difference?
It makes no sense. It actually infuriates me that it's just become natural for everybody it's accepted. I mean, it's something it's accepted now.
Even when you go to Transmit next week, so you're telling me that somebody watching Pill and a teen is going to be, they're not going to be Celtic fans that are having a pint there. You know what I mean?
I
But
know.
they can still behave.
I think everybody that watches Power and the team must need a drink, to be honest with you.
Oh, come on, I love him. Come on, no, Mark.
Do you like him? I'm not a big Celtic fan, to be honest, but no for me, mate. No for me.
Yeah, I mean, so I'm going to be there next Friday to see him. But yeah, it's just crazy that so many people can go to Transmit next week and
listen, mate, there's a lot more going on at Transmit festivals than just alcohol, and the police accept it. Yep. So I don't know why it's not accepted at Celtic Park. It's nothing that we can solve, but I definitely think we need to start putting pressure on these when the beaks at Celtic, the beaks at SFA, because they're accepting it. I mean, surely they've got a fundamental basis to go to whoever it is and just say, look, can you give me evidence to why the youth of today can't buy a drink inside a stadium? Can you tell me why?
It's like you said.
I mean, do you close bars and pubs because there's a fight in Glasgow Town on a Friday night? You don't close bars and pubs. You don't.
No. And it's like you said. At least when, say, like you go to Celtic Park, you're going there to watch a game, so you're going to know what you're doing. Rather, if you go to a city centre bar, you know you're going to go there for a drink and a party, so you don't know what's going to happen.
No, exactly, and that's it. Your main focus is the football. When you go out for a drink, your main focus is the drink. You know what I mean, that's when you get carried away. I mean, let's be honest. Celtic Park, maximum you're going to get is 2 drinks. I mean, the queues are going to be wild. You know what I mean? It's like the money we're going through the tills, but you won't get a drink. You won't get 3-4 pints. No chance. You'd have to be standing in the concourse, sitting on the ground, because you couldn't even carry them for a start. It's just.
You need to be there at 1 o'clock.
You would be, mate. And by the way, I go to the Cairndale bar sometimes. I know you do, and I can buy 10 pints if I want to. Nothing stopping me. I can have my 2 tins of Millers in my pocket. Nobody's going to notice. I mean, come on. It's just the money the club's losing, and it's money Scottish football's losing. I'd love to actually get what?
53,000 was at Calvin Harris last night, and you're trying to tell me that every single one of them was responsible? Come on.
No, definitely not. Definitely not. And I'd love to see a photograph of Hampden by the people who stay there, the aftermath, because it wouldn't have been tidy. But when Celtic play there, there's photographs, don't know, like Walker's crisp packets lying in the grass, like somebody's created a pure disaster area. You know what I mean? A box of empty lagers, all neatly tucked away in the corner. And it's like, oh, look at the mess these Celtic fans have made, or Rangers fans have made. But see, last night there have been folk walking about flinging cans into gardens and peeing in people's gardens, you name it, you know what I mean? Like they've been doing. So why is it only football that's getting targeted like this?
Yeah, I mean,
football is targeted anyway. That is a target.
See, Brown Warrior saying that Glasgow is the 8th most violent city in Europe, Mark. But what I would say to that is, if you go,
that's fighting talk. Tell him.
I think if you go to London, you know, every London club has got their problems, but they can get a beat. They can get a beat at every game.
I know, it's ridiculous. Even that start. I mean, it's irrelevant, mate. No, every fight and argument is revolving football and alcohol, and the two of them combined.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And Glasgow Town on a Friday night, there's probably maybe 20, 30 arrests through fighting. And I can guarantee you almost every one of them will be today with a woman or today with past arguments. It'll be just because of alcohol. You know what I mean? It'll be today with somebody staring at somebody's bird. Somebody you know from before having an argument that's been historic. I mean, the two of them don't go together. It's not just because they're getting drunk that's the reason why they're fighting. I'm sure that there is a correlation, but it annoys me, mate. When I watched the show last week and the two of them made much better points than me about it, but I thought I had to say something because I'm just fed up with how we just accept the fact that we can't get a drink just because we're untrusted.
Yeah, I
And
mean,
because Glasgow's got more crime than Derbyshire, I don't give a shit about that.
no, obviously Wimbledon is posh, right? And there's a few people that go there for the prawn sandwiches, as Roy Keane would say, but right. But I'm
Yeah.
sure, well, I'm sure not everybody that goes to Wimbledon is posh. No,
No, well,
and
no. Well, I know you go quite a lot, but you are posh.
and they get to sit, and watch the tennis and and have a beer sitting beside them. So,
Mhm.
like, come on,
Yeah.
it's not
Rugby
as if
too.
it's not as if
It's the
they're going to.
perception, but
I know it is. Have
it's
you got anything else
no. I mean that's
you want to get off
no,
your
because
chest, Mark?
no.
Uh,
I've
uh, uh,
I've had
Mark,
enough of that, mate.
Mark, I feel I've been part of a therapy session, mate.
You've done no bad, mate. We've solved a lot of issues. We've solved
Aye, we have,
alcoholism. We've solved Leigh Griffiths' career.
and
We've solved everything, mate. Anything else you want to talk about?
we've solved social media.
On social media, they've been fixed. We've actually started a campaign.
Finally,
Be nice or think
finally,
twice.
finally, I just want to apologise to the whole Boise Bus nation to say I'm so sorry that Mark didn't show up between 6 and 8 last week for his great brand new show, Mark.
the CAIRNEY rant, they call that, didn't they?
Aye.
Well,
I think Russell done
that
as a
was
belter
hilarious,
there.
that.
He done as a
What's
belter,
that?
didn't he? I think Russell done as a belter. He done
Aye,
as a
did,
belter,
mate,
didn't he?
aye. Caught that a belter, actually, aye.
Oh
Right, so
god.
what's next then, mate? What we got on the agenda?
Anyway, next on the agenda, finally, just before we go, is the famous Celtic game 3-2 against Rangers at Celtic Park in 2009 when Barry Robson scored a penalty and Scott McDonald was sensational on that day, Mark. And I think you've got a story to tell us about that day.
I've always got a story, mate. I think so. As always, I like to miss the first goal. I was standing outside the turnstiles with my good pal Steg, and we had a big massive roar. And that's the days before you couldn't just pick up your phone and log in and see the score straight away. It wasn't that long ago, but it was that long ago, really. And we all thought it was Rangers that scored. So we did. So we were in the turnstiles, just dragging our feet to get to our seats. And but as soon as we walked out, we could see that Celtic had scored. You know what I mean? The place was going crazy, and that's something I'll never forget. That I thought Rangers had scored a goal against Celtic at Celtic Park, and I missed the celebration altogether. You know what I mean? But it was a fantastic game and all, actually, mate, wasn't it?
I mean, see, my memory of that game is Scott McDonald. I mean, I spoke to you about this famous game yesterday, thinking about this game. But yeah, I mean, it was brilliant. I mean, I just remember Scott McDonald playing so well that day. That's my memory of that game.
He was really well. He was really important for us that season. It took a wee couple of games to click in, and when he got running, he just never stopped, the guy. And he was important to Celtic's championship that season, so he was. That match was a very strange match because it was, in fact, that season really in the derby matches at Celtic Park, we won 2 in 10 days. But see, our players were in aggressively.
Oh, aye, because
there was a lot of bookings.
I think that was the one where was it McGregor gets sent off, and then was that?
No, that game,
10 days
Wacker got
before.
sent off. The game before that, that
No,
was the one where
was it Carlos Cuellar put his hand in the line? Remember that was the one.
Oh, that was the one game, wasn't
it? Jan Vinegar Hesselink.
Yeah, that was important as well. And the 3-2 game, the Celtic were very strong in midfield. They were getting into challenges really strong. You know, they were going through players. And it was a very un-Celtic performance in the matches. It's like, I think we need a bit of that just now, but that's another story. And they won that match through grit and determination. It wasn't a great performance by Celtic. The Rangers had a lot of chances that day. I think Naylor and Hinkle were trying their best to let the likes of Novo and that in behind them, and Boric was awful for the 2 goals as well. But managed to pull it out the bag. You know what I mean? I think it was. I can still hear that the second goal for Celtic was a deflection that lobbed. I think it was Graham Alexander in goal for Rangers. I think it was.
Neil
I can still hear that.
Neil
Alexander.
Aye.
I can still hear the ball clipping off the Rangers defender's feet. I can still hear that noise in my mind's eye. I can still see it and hear it. You know what I mean? And it was just a brilliant day. You know, went back to the pub and we all got smashed. And I think if Rangers had won that match, the season was over. I think that would have. I think we were something like 4 points behind, something like that. So if we won, it would have got it neck and neck. But if they'd won, it would just go to be 7 points behind, like 6 games to go or so. You know what I mean? We've been finished. You know what I mean? And that was important. That was 2 big matches for Celtic in 10 days at Celtic Park. And Big Jan Venegoor, I'll never forget that roar. I was at that game as well, and I'll never forget how loud that place went when we scored that. Because, in fact, funnily enough, I don't know if the cameras pick it up, but they were singing the Championes when we scored that goal, which is ironic.
Oh, yeah.
They were singing a song like that. They were quite loud at the time. I don't know if the cameras picked it up, whatever, but if you listen back, you may be able to hear it. And they were quite. They were singing their songs, and it was just a brilliant day. The sun was shining, and we won it by a penalty down the middle. It was actually a bad penalty, but it was a strong penalty, and it was just a great day.
It was a bad penalty,
I was, and then they got a player sent off at the very last minute, which is always nice to see them walking home with their heads down, staring at their shoes. I love that. I love to see them getting home in a bad mood. I love that.
Well, Mark, I just want to thank you, and I want to apologise to the Boise Bus viewers that you'll not be on between 6 and 8 for a MARC CAIRNEY Celtic special, but
that's cancelled.
That could be a thing in the future, you know, no, Mark?
Well, there's talks about things. We'll no spoil any things.
Are you in transfer talks, aye?
Well, there's been discussions with me and Leigh Griffiths, mate. That's all I'm going to say.
I just hope you're no jumping ship to another podcast.
No chance, mate.
I don't want you with a different t-shirt on. I want to see you with the Boise Bus t-shirt, no MD else.
Mate, that's you know me. I'm grounded, mate. I'm here.
No deadline day specials, no.
I'm not a pimp, mate. I don't pimp myself out. I'm not like that Dale man, jumping from ship to ship.
Okay, guys. Well, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you again next Sunday.
Take care, guys. Cheers, Reegan.
See you.
Some of his comments about me deliberately trying to cause controversy. Well, I work in the media now, and you've got someone sitting there next to you who's an embarrassment to the media profession. He's an apologist. He's a charlatan.